Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Today we're having another go at one of these one shelf rack at a time, except for it's actually one corner at a time. Again, it's as I water, so those who don't like the clonking sound, well, play somewhere else or whatever. But basically I was watering and I got as far as the door, and that's in a normal pot run. So some plants get missed out because they're on a different run. And that will apply also to some of these because they've been moved. So they actually got watered in the last run and don't need doing today. But they got moved into a place where I'm... You following this? I shall be asking questions later. Right, so I've got some feed and everything mixed up. For those that are interested, that's MSU at 170. It's got a bit of seaweed in it and it's got a pH of 6.6. which will drop relatively quickly as the water stays in the media. So it may start like that and the initial surge that goes into the relatively dry roots will be at that pH. Any moisture that remains in the pot, the pH will drop. So as the orchid tops itself up, the pH range varies. And in theory that means that all of the nutrients get a go. That's the theory behind it. So what we're doing is everything here that's not a cymbidium and didn't get moved in the last run and isn't a mount. You got that? Right, so a couple of biggies up here. Now this one we don't see very often. This has moved. It's moved because it was under the lights taking up a space that things that are more important to go under the lights ought to have, like my Odontoglossum. This needs reasonably bright light, but it doesn't need any winter encouragement. It's growing fine as it is. Now this is it's an Anachelium, which basically is a Prosthetia under another name or another guise. It's got a pot full of roots. It's a plant that keeps growing well but flowers rarely. It has bloomed for me, but there is new growths. There's new growth here, and this does a strange thing that some of these types do. It grows a bulb, and then out the top of the bulb it grows another one, little one, with the terminal leaves on, which makes it a strange looking shape. This desperately needs going in a bigger pot. Here's another one with the little bulb on the top. They don't all do it. Another little one here. But yeah, it's growing well. It has bloomed. Hasn't bloomed for a while, but yeah, it's doing okay. Pleased with that one. What have I always said about feeding and watering when the days are shorter? Feed and water things that are growing. This has got new growth pushing on. Hello, here comes trouble. You want to go out? Hey, you want to go out? Come on then. Behave yourself. Don't get up to anything I wouldn't. Ooh. Right, next is another one of those, basically. No, not the same thing. This is a Prosthetia radiata. Now this was the only reasonably large plant that I got in the plants I got from Derek. If you don't know what Derek's all about, then it's old stuff. I'm not going over all that again. But this has put up a couple of new growths recently, plenty of roots. It's not actively growing as such at the moment, but I suspect it's seriously thinking about, yeah, there's a sheath in there. I was going to say, I suspect it's seriously thinking about coming into bloom in the not distant future, but because this is in larger bark, it's bone dry, so it needs some water, and the fact that there's some feed in the water is tough. A lot of the roots are on the top of the pot, not in the media, so they get the water poured over them. And then I have a look round and see where the roots are. We've got roots there, and we've got lots of roots there, and some roots there. What we haven't got is roots round here. So there's no point in watering that, is there? There's nothing in there. All that does is add water to the pot that is not going to get used. And water that doesn't get used this time of year can cause problems with your roots. If you don't pour it in there, then you don't have to worry about it, do you? So that's those two. Next we've got some holy clay pots with Cattleyas that are not doing very well, because none of my Cattleyas are doing very well. I was hoping this latest new growth might actually bloom, but it hasn't. It has grown some roots and it has pushed up some new growths, but I wouldn't say that's a growing well Cattleya. It's surviving, but I'm not sure my Cattleyas are ever going to do much nowadays. I can give them enough light, but I can't give them the warmth they want. So, as I said, they're surviving, but I don't think they're ever going to do well. And this little one here. Now this was a yippee moment because it did actually put up a sheath, and then the sheath promptly went black. And inside that sheath were actually some buds. And they've just died. So that was the latest growth. It does have another one here, so it's going to have another go. And I think, you know, that this was a relatively small division when I got it, and I think it's still not quite strong enough to bloom. But this growth did produce some roots. There are quite a few roots on this plant. And this new growth has also pushed some roots down, so it's now got a better root system. It's got an extra pair of leaves, and it's going to produce another pair of leaves, so all the time it's getting stronger. So we might get some blooms on this. This has never bloomed for me. But the one thing the Cattleyas have got now that they haven't had before, I'm saying that the wrong way round, but I know what I mean, is they're not having to put up with scale chewing away at the base and in behind the sheaths. The scale are virtually eradicated. I do come across a small little cluster now and again. While we're on that subject, the hot box, that subject's come up again. At the moment I can't use it. To work properly it needs still air, because basically the heater, electric heater, reduces the sulfur to a liquid at a temperature at which it evaporates. And because of the shape of the hot box, the heat comes out round where the sulfur is and forms a column of air that draws the evaporated fumes up and spreads them around. If you've got fans running, that doesn't work properly. So the only time I can use it is when I can shut down all the fans. And at the moment the fan is attached to the heater, and the heater's there for a reason. Now during the day, like now, I'm borrowing heat from the house. So I don't need the heater and the fans on. I'm not having the sulfur thing running with this door wide open, am I? I actually tape that shut when I use it. So until such time as I can guarantee a period that the heater isn't going to come on and it's not going to get too cold in here and I can seal the door, I can't use it. Once those conditions are back, I'll start using it again. But I'm not desperate to start using it because the need, it's virtually done its job almost too well. Now this Cattleya, there I can see a couple of scale at the bottom of that. Are they alive? not sure they're even alive. Right, this I don't believe is ever going to do any good. This new growth here, I believe that's rotted. I'd have to take the sheath off. I can feel it bending, I can feel it, it's soft. So that new growth rotted, so that lead is now ceased to grow. Over this side, this smaller piece, there's 2 plants in here, also has a new growth that's not doing very well at all. I don't think that's ever going to be any good. I'm inclined to just throw it. In fact, decision made. I've been looking after it for so long. I mean, look at the state of it. It's never going to be any good. Even if it starts to grow now, the whole of the old part of the plant is just rubbish. It looks awful. It's, you know, look how shriveled these bulbs are. It's never going to be any good. It's not going to recover in a time scale I'm prepared to put up with. Last season, when it started the new growths, I thought, right, the following year, this year, it might do okay. Well, it's not. So we will say bye-bye to that one. Ah, that leaves that shelf nice and empty. Bit more room for some other stuff now. This is one of my brightest shelves because it gets light from both corners and from the roof. It is a very bright shelf. And come the summertime, the 3 months in midsummer, this particular shelf will get the sun through the roof as well, which is when I have to apply the shading. Once we get to that time of year, I tend to shade that section of the roof. Not heavily shaded, but shaded. Yeah, we definitely got room for something else to go up there now. I'll have a think. My Orchid was on the end here, but I need that under the lights. That's one of the things I need to start growing early if possible. So that's that. Right, the next thing is this one that lives on the floor because it is so tall. Now what I would like to see on this is a new growth. We haven't had one for a while. It won't stand up, it has to lean against something. We had an accident, that cane fell over and broke the top off, which I was hoping would trigger a new growth, but it hasn't yet. The blooms on this cane are, well, that one fell on the floor as I picked it up, this one won't be long. And the blooms on this cane have just recently opened. So we've got 3 up the top there and 1 part way up the cane. So this one grows okay. It didn't grow okay when it was covered in scale. And being a black hair type was one of the worst orchids. The black hair types in here and the Cattleyas were the worst for actually getting scale and me not being able to get rid of it. Some black hair types, if you spray them with systemics, they will dump their leaves. They're very sensitive to systemics. Not all of them, but you know. So the hot box earned its keep here because it's rid this of scale. You know, look in the leaf joints, they're not there. Look round the base, they're not there. Come on. Gonna sing us a song? Well, that wasn't much of a song. No good singing in there, nobody can hear you. All the way out into the kitchen he's going to sing now. But because this is opening and maintaining blooms, this does actually get some reasonable water. Desperately needs a repot, this one. Hasn't had one since I got it, which is why it's still directly potted in a black pot. So that's on the list. No rush, but it's on the list. So that's that one. And that then gives me access to these over here. Now this is Hibiki, and it's got 1 flower left, so it has virtually finished flowering now. It is vigorously growing, so much so that it's almost not hydrating enough to push the new leaves out. So this is drying a bit too quick at the moment, but it was susceptible to root rot at one point. I lost a couple directly due to that, so I'm cautiously watering it. It could do with hydrating a bit better, I must admit. And most of the roots are at the very top of the pot, but it needs hydration. It's growing quite well. There's an awful lot of new growth on here, and there's new growths coming. So this is obviously using any feed that it gets, because it's very actively growing. So we'll give that a good water. But yeah, it's down to one bloom now. So it'll probably have a rest from blooming now, and then they tend to bloom on leafless canes. Can you see any leafless canes on this plant? Maybe we'll get some leafless canes as this year progresses. So older growths that are not still growing might actually drop some leaves. But this little cluster here was actually on a cane that's got leaves on. It's got leaves on and a keiki, which is a double keiki. It's actually got, I'll show you, it's got two keikis coming out of the same place with some roots on. So that's a viable little plant. That could be planted up now. I've just realised that's not in a black pot. Which it should be. Right, so that's that one. I'm going to need some space. The next two are big ones. Right, oh, get these keikis done. These are Dendrobium keikis of a nobly type. Can't remember which. They are effectively not growing at the moment, but I like to just keep them hydrated. They finish growing, so technically they're resting, but because they're keikis, they don't really want to be properly rested as such. They haven't got enough strength in them. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, there's 6 plants in there. I'm hoping to get a new growth in the not too distant future on all 6 of those. That will make that a 12 cane Dendrobium, and if the next lot of canes grow to full size, they'll be up here. Yeah? That will put a lot of strength, even though there'll only be 2 canes on each one. They'll be strong because it roots well, and in theory we could then get some blooms on these, what are now keikis, but next year they'll be old canes, and they might even start to drop their leaves. So that's the future for those. Next. Monster. Whenever I see a bad leaf, I always take it off. Mainly because it just doesn't look very nice. There's a couple of leaves on here with brown ends, but I'm not going around trimming them at the moment. This is Sherry Baby. Now I did have 2 of these, a smaller one and a big one. The smaller one just died after it was repotted. It didn't make it. So we're down to 1. But I say 1, I think there's 2 plants in this pot. But again, the new growths are pushing on. So it's like here, it's in active growth. Therefore it's going to use the feed. No growth pushing on here. So it's going to use the feed that it's being given and the water that it's getting. So, but I'm not going to drown it because the pot is so big, even though it's got a good root system. So a pot full of roots there. Some of those are actively growing as well. But that flowered quite reasonably well last time round. I don't suppose we're going to get much of a blooming this time because there's only 2 new growths pushing on. So even if, oh no, 3, there's one in the middle of the pot plant. So maybe 3. So we may get 3 spikes, we may get some double spikes. It's quite a strong plant. And then this one, says on the tag that it's Shelob Tolkien when it's not. It's actually Shelob Marie. Everybody's heard of Shelob Tolkien. It's probably because it sticks in their mind because of the association with Lord of the Rings, obviously. But there are several. And this one is Shelob Marie. I didn't know that until it bloomed, because it was given to me, I think Sean in Devon. Well, it's not. He was in Devon when he gave it to me, but that's not where he comes from. It's, I forget where. On the way to Devon. Yeah, but this is last year's growth here that bloomed has got 2 new growths coming. This growth here has got 2 new growths coming, so we've got 4 new growths on this, with a backup of a good plant with very big fat bulbs. So I suspect all 4 of those growths will produce a spike. So that, and this one's pushing on, and this one's dragging its heels. These two are quite close together, and in between these two. Now in theory, although if they're going to bloom it'll be this one first, the others will be very close behind. You've just been out, you obviously are just being annoying now, aren't you? Now those new growths, when I put this back, point to where the light is, not in the shady bit. So I make sure it is positioned. If you get under my feet, Cat, you'll be sorry. I can't look at what I'm doing and what you're doing at the same time. I know why he's fussing, it's his lunchtime. That's what he's fussing about. I'm nearly done now, there's only a couple to do. So, he's not going to die of hunger if his lunch is 15 minutes late. He normally has it about 12 o'clock, and it is... It's not even 12 o'clock yet. Right, you can wait. Right, so that's that little lot done. Put my little gadget up here so I can see what's going on with the temperature. Now we're not doing cymbidiums yet, but my little miniature cymbidium, the buds are pushing on nicely now. I don't think this is going to be too long before it opens. These blooms are absolutely gorgeous. I grew, compared with what I inherited, back bulb, 2 bulbs, the bulb that I grew last year, better than anything else on the plant, and a nice spike. I think it had 4 blooms, but then that was its first blooming. This is its second blooming. It was in bloom when I got it. And we've got 2, 4, 6, we've got 8 buds on there. So that should be open soon, I think. It's a little cutie. Lots of people said that exact expression because when it was in bloom last time I took it with me to the Wessex Orchid Society show, where as treasurer I have to sit on the door for an amount of the day, and I sat it on the where people pay to come in, and lots of people stopped and commented on it, and many said little cutie. So the expression has stuck. Now that Paphiopedilum that I've just picked up was watered yesterday, but I moved it because it's going to come into flower hopefully soon. It's a very weak stem on that spike. If I hadn't staked it, it would have come over the side of the pot and possibly broken. A little miniature, nice one. It's Appletonianum. It's got another name as well, but that got watered when I moved it. This one, which is in bloom, it's Lianum, but it's got an X in front of it because it's a natural hybrid, naturally occurring hybrid. And because this is in bloom and it was on that table, it didn't get watered. We're only doing them now. Now this one is in a pot, hasn't been repotted. I don't know what the media is like down in the pot. It is growing some new growths, so it is in active growth, but I haven't got a clue what sort of root system I've got in there, so I don't like giving it a massive soak. it gets a trickle around the edge of the pot. I'm not sure how much longer that bloom will be with us. And then most of the large fans on this plant will have bloomed, so we'll then have a bit of a wait for some new ones to mature. Right, now this one is not part of this watering run. This is one of my cooler, shadier types, but as it's on this shelf and will stay here because of the bloom spike is now too tall for the shelf it was on. The light here is a bit too bright for it, but it's not in active growth. This is one of my £100 plants, so let's hope these blooms are worth it. So that's not getting any, it's already been watered. That's the cooler, shadier ones we've done a few days ago. That also applies to this one. We've got a leaf going on this one. It's on the oldest bulb, so we won't worry about that too much. And again, the spike on this one doesn't look very good at all. One bud's blasted, so I think we might only get 3 blooms on here. But this is the smaller plant anyway, and hopefully that will grow a bit better when the next new growth starts, which will be after it blooms, I suspect. Now, re-listening to Jim Durrant, who's the maintenance guy and hybridizer and everything at the Mathers Foundation, and he was the same thing at McBean's and has been doing that for whatever it is, 40 odd years. I think he knows what he's doing, and he is adamant that these types of Odontoglossums, okay, they're called Oncidiums now, but they're Odontoglossums, quite easily identified by the much darker green bulbs and everything like that. And basically he says, and others have agreed that grow these quite well, including my friend Brian Gould, that after they bloom they need a rest, and they really do need a rest, because that's the point at which they will start pushing new growths, and if you want a new root system to go with those new growths, you've got to make them work for it. If you keep them wet at that particular time, they might not produce a very good new root system. But if you make them hunt for moisture, they'll push roots out from those new growths. Because both of these are going to have a full repot, so I've got to get new root systems on those. Right, this one, this also hasn't been repotted, it's as it was when I got it from Burnham's. All the spikes have opened, some of the blooms are starting to go now. The aphids are still rampant on here. This particular bloom has got 20 on there, and then the next bloom up's got none. They seem to be fussy. I just wipe them off with my finger. It could do with a spray now. They're starting to get out of hand, quite honestly. And yeah, if you look at this spike over here, there's none. None on that spike. A few on that one. Yeah, I could do with the spray really. But more importantly, it's light as a feather, it needs water. That it does need. And again, that's the older bulbs on here, they're a bit shriveled. I haven't grown any new bulbs. This was as I bought it. It's bloomed, and it's bloomed quite well, and as soon as it's finished blooming, this will have a bit of a rest. Not totally dry for months on end, but it'll have a bit of a rest. Certainly won't need any food until it starts to grow again, and then we'll give it a push. But yeah, this was one of those plants. When I go to Burnham's, I have to buy something. I feel obliged to help support the nursery, and I've known Sarah a long time and everything. And this one had 6 spikes on it. I thought, well, we'll take that home then. I'm not overly keen on these blooms, I must admit. So this might go to somebody else, perhaps. I mean, they have a sort of appeal and a sort of attractiveness, and they are fragrant. Yeah, a little nondescript, I suppose you could call it. And then the last one, before we pack this malarkey in, we're going to get some lunch for both of us. This is Tahitian Dancer, and although it's next to that plant covered in aphids, there's none on here. These blooms are, however, attractive, even though they're only a fraction bigger than the previous lot we looked at. But the colour has more depth to it, and with that bright deep yellow centre offset against the colour, these are attractive blooms. So another spike over here, just literally starting to open. This plant nearly got thrown out. It was in a bad way. Scale, shrivelled, and the new bulbs have all grown nice and plump. They've got good leaves and 2 spikes, a spike on each of the new growths. We've also got roots. So this is a full recovery. Doing nicely. Now it's not in active growth as such, but it is trying to open some buds, so that it is still using resources. Could get away with not feeding that because there will be enough resources in that plant with those 4 plump bulbs to actually open those blooms and keep them going. But it would reduce the resources when it's not necessary. I've got a feed run on the go, so it's got some. Yes, so yeah, a nice plant, that one. I like the blooms a lot. This one I'm not so sure about. But what I do with that one is I make sure that those spikes don't overhang any other plants, so that if those aphids drop off, they don't drop on anything. What? I know it's your lunchtime. I'll come and get it in a minute. Fusspot. You can go out if you want. You don't really want to go out, you're just fussy, aren't you? Just trying to draw attention to yourself. Well, you succeeded. You'll have your lunch in a minute. Right, so that's that corner. I think I am going to have to spray this plant. Getting a bit out of hand here. So I don't want them spreading to the degree that they start getting on lots of other plants. At the moment, they are confined to this bench, just here. And where did they come from? They came from the Sherry Baby, I think was the first one that had them, and that bloomed here. And they are confined here. They're just in this little area. And at the moment, they're just on that one plant. So now would be a good time to spray that plant. And then this one goes back on the floor. It's the only place I can sort of put it and lean it against something and still be able to see the blooms. So that lives there. Right, lunchtime. These one shelf rack at a time are a way of having a better look at some of the plants, but they're random. You know, it's not like let's have a look at the oncidiums, let's have a look at the dendrobiums, that sort of thing. It's whatever's on those shelves. And there's very few shelves that are limited to one type of orchid. I can think of one where the Miltonias are, but apart from that, no. So that's that one done then, and I will see you tomorrow for the Sunday chat. Subject and spotlight video as yet undecided. I'll have a think. See you next time. Bye for now.